Try to imagine all life as you know it stopping instantaneously and every molecule in your body exploding at the speed of light.
Total protonic reversal.
Protonic reversal.
Protonic Reversal with your host, Conan Neutron. Broadcasting from a secret underground lair in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
A gigantic middle finger to everything that is rotten about music, rock and roll, and corporate power.
The thing is, though, if you don't laugh, you're going to go on a killing spree with sharpened nails.
Confidence of a hero or a fool. I wasn't exactly certain which.
Could not be more professional.
It means something. It means something. You know, that's my take on it. What's yours?
Protonic Reversal!
That's like a science thing, right?
Indeed it is. It is a science thing, is a science place, is a scientific fact that we are all up in your face. It's time once again for the one, the only Protonic Reversal. Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. Episode 374 tonight. Again, I mentioned I was stepping up these episodes productions, and I meant it. And very excited on this overflow day of Monday, not the normal Protonic Reversal day, to be talking to this man, this excellent drummer, which we will be getting to shortly. I'm very excited to talk to Peter Prescott. Minibeast, Volcano Sun's, a little band called Mission of Burma. Maybe you heard of them. And yeah, should be a good time. But before we do any of that, welcome to Conan Neutron's Protonic Reversal. I'm your host, Conan Neutron. I'm a rock and roll lifer who's been touring and recording for 24 years. Most known for the band Conan Neutron and the Secret Friends. Music is a huge part of my life, and I use the format of this very long-running podcast to talk about music with musicians whose work I enjoy and respect, but who may not be household names. This is episode 374. If this is your first time listening to the show, archives of it are available for free. No ads, no sponsors, no kidding, at protonicreversal.com. However, if you want to support the show and get episodes sooner, $1 a month at patreon.com/protonicreversal will achieve that goal. And if you like the show, even just a single episode, please feel free to like, subscribe on your platform of choice, share it around the internet, and even leave a review. All that helps people discover the show. It beats back the almighty algorithmic overlords. It's just a darn nice thing to do. So there you go. So Minibeast, Volcano Suns, Mission of Burma. These are some incredible bands. I'm excited to talk to this guy. Last time I saw him, he was in the cone, the isolation cone that you have in quiz shows is what I would call it. Peter Prescott, welcome to the show, man.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Is that the sound thing is what I'm talking about. The protective barrier. What's the official name for those things? Is there an official name for those?
You know, it was just folding panels of plastic, heavy plastic.
Yeah, like lucite or something, right?
The band. Oh, of course you do, McCluskey.
Yeah.
No,
who's that?
Well, they're using them now that I know.
Yeah. I told Falco, I was like, "Oh, you're doing a Burma,
huh?" Yeah, you got to do what you got to do.
Sure. Yeah.
If you want to do this stuff, so I got used to it, and it didn't bother me after a while.
And I only bring that up because it was literally the last time I saw you in person was when you were in that, right. And it always did remind me of like when at the quiz show when you're
right. Isolation. Yeah.
Isolation.
Yeah.
There we go.
Totally.
What was Get Smart? What was the
cone of silence?
Cone of silence.
Yeah. That was my cone of silence. Yeah.
The big cone of silence vibes. Yeah. But it was so interesting to see you guys work that because at the time that I'm aware of for like, I guess we'll just call it punk rock, right? For lack of a better term. I don't feel like there was a lot of precedent for that kind of thing. Because of course the reason why is because it was literally to make sure that one of the band members had horrendous tinnitus could play. Not to put a fine point on it. And I mean, and that was when there was like a after coming back, Burma coming back, right? An amazing story in and of itself. But like, if was there a path towards that, or was it just like, well, hell, we're already doing this, we got to do this, right?
You know,
Kind of way.
like anything in music, it was like stars aligning in the right way.
Right.
And you know, I don't think we had any desire really to do it, but you know, it was brought up to do one show, and we started playing together, and we're like, wow, this is pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, I think we sort of were like more impressed with ourselves than we thought we'd be, and the more we played, the more it felt like an actual band again. So yeah, how that ended up to be 13 years, I can't answer that, but you know,
because it's the second run was like longer than the first, right?
quite a bit.
But
Quite
then
a bit, yeah.
But then also it's a rare example where, and there's other bands I can think of like this, where the world kind of caught up to what you guys were doing, for lack of a better.
You know, I worked in record stores all throughout the 90s and the 2000s, and it was a funny thing because the kind of sound we had in the 90s was, it just, no one gave a shit. And
Yeah.
you know, I things go in cycles, so it never bothered me that much. But I mean, even Killing Joke, Gang of Four, stuff that was sort of happening at the same time didn't have a real popular vibe. 2000s, there was this insane post-punk revival. I mean, it wasn't called that, but you know,
That's what it was,
Strokes,
though.
the Strokes and the Rapture, and like, you know, 50 other bands popped up.
Liars, well, Liars at the beginning anyway.
Right.
Radio, what were those guys? Radio,
I have 4, yeah.
Radio Clash. I was going to say it's not Radio Clash, but
Yeah, I think it was Radio 4.
Yeah, Radio
But
4.
yeah, and So suddenly we were surrounded by this camouflage that that we sort of blended in with, I think. So it you know, it just happened to be the right time. And
well, and you again, like, trends kind of, if they weren't going your way, they weren't going against you necessarily, right? And then there's this whole new, because again, this is it's weird to think of now that there was an epoch of time where it's like this was the Napster revolution, where like, oh, you can get music for free now. Of course, it sounds adorable to any of the younger listeners to the show. They're like, what? Of course you can. But it was a game changer then. I mean, I remember because I came to Burma rather late. Like I came to Burma in my 20s, and like I heard Peking Spring first, and I was like, oh, what's this? This is cool. Like, and then I was like, what? There's a whole band that like what's these guys deal? Like, how did I not know about them? And the answer is because I lived on the West Coast. And I just, you know, whatever. It was easier to miss stuff, I think, back in the day. But I was like,
of course, there was so much. There is so much.
They're currently, yeah, exactly. It's not like it's any different now.
You know? Yeah.
But I remember just absolutely devouring the discography and going back and be like, wow, what was these guys deal? Like, why weren't these guys like much better known? Like, it seems like they should have been much better known. And then, of course, I was looking at it from the perspective of like, you know, whatever, like 2000, 2001, like around that time period. And
right. and it was 1979 and 1980. So
right. The vibes were different. Is the charitable way.
No one had any idea how to get the kind of music we made to the people, so to speak. And you know, you made it up as you went along. So I was really happy with what we did back in the day, and it was just all gravy that it happened again. You know?
Yeah, I mean, because there's something to be said for just like doing good work and like, well, we know that was good, and you know, it didn't like, you know, whatever, we didn't end up headlining arenas and and whatever, but like we knew that what we did was good, and
right.
The people that matter engage with it in a way that meant something to people. And that, I mean, for the, you know, the kind of world we travel in, that means the world, of course.
It was the world to me, to everyone in the band. You know, I don't think, you know, I don't think we ever took it for granted that, you know, it happened then and it happened later. You know.
it also occurs to me that you know, as interesting as Burma's music was, like what Martin was doing, what Swope was doing when the tape sound effects and stuff, like that was pretty forward, especially for punk rock bands. You know, like I mean, sure, there's Negative Land, like Stipple Bathtub, like did like in the 90s, whatever. But like back then, like I like it just added an element of just like what? Like what's happening that you often don't get when you're just like, oh here's another punk rock band. All right, great.
Well, it sort of raised the bar for the three of us, that there was another guy that could suck up all our sound and spew it back out on top
as an instrument, pretty much. I mean,
totally as an instrument.
Yeah.
I think, and also when looping and sampling like started to take off in the 90s, sounded great to me. I was already kind of there, you know.
You're like, I did that 20 years ago, son. Yeah.
I sort of got into remix music and sampled music. I think it was always the idea of it was something we had used. So
sure,
sounded good to me.
Well, yeah, and the principle remains the same, and that's again one of the reasons why those early Burma records, they like time treated them well, right? Like the world kind of caught up, because whereas it would have been like, it does happen sometimes, where it's potentially just bafflement at the time, and it's like, no, these guys were like, you know, pioneers who got scalped, to quote the Devo compilation. Tell me, I wasn't actually going to start off with this, but we're already talking about it. Tell me about signals, calls, and marches.
Tell you about what?
Signals, calls, and marches. Let's talk about that one, because that is, well, first of all, I think it's one of the great EPs of punk rock or whatever. Whatever you want to call it. And certainly, I mean, if we count it as a debut release, certainly one of the great debuts. And first track, Revolver. Get out of here.
Well, it was interesting because when I joined, I'm not sure if Clint had ever written a song at that
Right.
point.
Wow.
And he brought in 1, 2, 3, and the more he brought in, I think we could all see that, you know, we're all hammering out a pretty fucked up sound, but
Yeah.
Clint could take elements of that and make an anthem out of it.
Yeah. Like,
And I think that was kind of a shock to us that, wow, you know, this sort of like fist in the air rock stuff, like that is not what we thought we were going to do. But but then he did it, and it was awesome, you know.
Yeah, and it's there's always there's such a disparity in the style of Burma songs, that in a good way, to the appreciative listener, but in a way that's like, you know, I love the Damned, right? But like the Damned were considered like the absolute outlier of what you could do with punk rock at the time, and compared to that, like Burma's coming from freaking Jupiter.
Right. You know, I'm a huge fan of bands like Noi or the Ramones that basically are a song.
They do that thing. There's the thing that they do, and they do that thing really well.
and I absolutely love that. And I was sort of in bands like that, but Burma was not one of them, obviously. Burma was sort of like a pinball machine where everything was lighting up, and it was not I don't think we went out of our way to make it difficult, but we made it difficult anyway.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, like it's somewhat challenging, and you're the kind of person that gets into, again, punk rock or whatever you call it, because you want to be challenged and you want to hear new sounds and have your mind blown, then like, great. But if you're just here for to sing along to the chorus, it's like, well,
it's fun to sing along to the chorus, you know. Why
sure
not? You know.
So what was fascinating to me is that you know, and thinking about the things like Revolver, Academy Fight Song, Like that's another just like ripper freaking Clintism. Like where it's like wow, like some bands would just like, cool, we're gonna rest on our laurels now because we wrote this like all-timer banger, and that's all we need to do. We don't need to do anything else, do we?
Yeah, he's sort of an amazing pop writer, and I'm not like the biggest fan of pop.
Right, yeah.
Or the idea of pop, like, a verse, a guitar solo, a chorus, whatever. I've sort of gotten burnt out on the whole idea. But at the same time, when I hear a good version of that, which is exactly what Clint does, it still kills me.
Yeah, and like it just occurs to me too that like they don't sound dated. You know what I mean? Like you can throw them on now, and it's like they still sound a little bit out of time, but they still like totally bang. And like the single, like Academy on one side, right, and Max Ernst on the other. Great. I mean, that's celebrating the format of the 7-inch. Like you can't get much better than that. That's. But then also, you guys would be a little more deeply inscrutable sometimes, which of course led to great effect. So,
well, one thing I didn't understand at the time, because in our heads we were punk rock.
Sure,
it was a pretty like twisted version of that, but it was punk rock. And Rick Hart, the guy that put out those records, he sort of viewed it in a different way, and he made it sort of weirdly hi-fi for punk rock, and that made it bad to a lot of people. Like, some people thought of it as too slick.
Yeah. Oh, there's like Emerson, Lake and Palmer or something. Yeah.
I guess I can understand that.
Yeah.
But what it was it was just hi-fi. It was like treating each sound like it was sort of important to the mix. And I got to give him credit, because I think if we had recorded that early stuff, we probably would have made it sound a lot more harsh and rough.
Totally. Like I think like the polar opposite that would be like, I don't know, the Pussy Galore tape or something, right? Where it's just like it's like, oh my god, it's like direct from Satan's anus, but it sounds great.
It does, yeah.
Like it's perfect for what it is. You wouldn't want to hear like a super hi-fi version of that necessarily.
Yeah, like maybe, you would, because that adds to it, the way it is.
Because it's all attitude. But it's interesting that folks bringing up that it's like a great headphone listen because of that. Like I feel like there's a lot of, again, at the time, wasn't popular to do that for quote unquote punk rock, right. But listen to the records now, and it's like, oh, this is cool. This is like real, like neat. Like you get something out of it.
I mean, that's part of the reason they do hold up later, right? I think is because they were recorded pretty carefully,
Yeah, and again, when people that have availability to it with this sort of examination of post-punk or whatever, the revival, whatever we want to call it, then it's right there. It's right there waiting to be picked up. and there's something to be said for that, because stuff doesn't always find its audience immediately.
Yeah.
In fact, often it doesn't. And so the good thing about the internet is that it allows, to a certain degree, it allows audience and band to be connected asynchronously. And that's wonderful. It's the good side.
It is the good side. And you can have a podcast.
You can have a podcast for 10 years in April and talk about all this stuff. And like, apparently people want to listen to it. Great. Because I'm literally just making the podcast I want to hear, just like I'm making the music I want to play, and or that I want to hear too.
In a way, the music world is looser in that sense.
I think so.
I since I've been playing in Minibeast, it's been about 7 years, and about 5 with the same 2 guys. Yeah. And I am astonished how often we run into, bands that may not have a hope in the world, but they sound so original.
Yeah.
There is stuff now. I can't believe there's stuff in 2024 that sounds original to me. That that makes me really happy, so yeah, and I feel like there's an underground, and it's really sort of thriving with musicians, but it's more underground than ever.
Everything is more balkanized. Everything's more of a niche. Almost.
I think.
Yeah, but then there are success stories like Tropical Fuckstorm, right? Like, which is a perfect example where it's like, okay, this, like, there's touchstones I could give you for what this band sounds like, but what they sound like is themselves, and it's freaking awesome. It's wonderful, and it's wonderful to see that strike a chord, and to hear a band like Idols that are like achieve this huge level of success where it's like, okay, I could sit here and deconstruct. Okay, that band sounds like that. This song sounds like McCluskey, and this one sounds like this. Whatever. I could sit there and deconstruct it for you, like a record store humorless jerk.
But if it breaks through and it's sustaining a certain attitude and sound,
it's bringing kids into weird music. Great.
That is fine.
Yeah,
that is more than fine. Yeah.
And like, if the songs are good, songs are good. Like, I mean, like people get like the fact, I don't see it as much, but I feel like people were getting upset about that for a while. It's like, tell me what exactly you're mad about. Like, show me on the record shelf where they hurt you. Yeah. Terrible joke. Anyway, but no, but like there's something to be said for that, because when I first heard Minibeast, I like listened to the record. I didn't even realize you were in that band. Because again, that's the difference between like discovering music now versus back then. Because I used to be a big, like, not only did I work at a record store, but like, oh, who's in the thank you notes for this record? Who do these guys ride with? Oh, cool, it's this band. Oh, what's that band name? Oh, let's check that out. I was a big I don't know whatever you want to call it, but like a grave digger of liner notes to find new bands and information.
Oh, sure.
And now I feel like, even though more stuff is more available, like, you get this little postage stamp looking image. You're like, what is that? I can't tell what that is. Which is a great sidebar. There's a great piece. There's a documentary about the Hypnosis. The record cover makers art.
Yeah, I saw that.
What you want to call it. Yeah,
that was fun.
And it was I don't know, it's the guy from Oasis or something. I don't really care, but he was describing what a record cover was to his kid. It was like, oh yeah, well, when you pull up your phone and you pull up an album you want to listen to, and she's like, what's an album? I'm like, okay, so when you go to listen to music, like he went like 3 or 4 layers deep, and then he's like, so the picture you see on there, that's an album cover. And like, oh, okay, but he had to like go like 3 or 4 layers deep to explain it, right? But it's a different experience because it's almost the music almost has to stand on its own, because unless it's something like where it's a worldwide performer that is known, household name of some kind, then someone has to usually kind of do a little bit of digging to even find out who it is. So I was like, oh crap, this is Peter Prescott's band. Awesome. Like, I didn't know. First thing I thought of is like, oh, that's a cool band name. And then I was like, oh, the music's good too. Right on, check and check. And then I was like, oh crap, it's got a dude that like isn't a band I already like that's in here. That's awesome. I didn't know that.
Well, I don't play drums on it.
Yeah,
I don't play drums on any Minibeast stuff. But the first 2 records I made by myself with samples and drum tracks and stuff.
But I'm just saying, I'm a dude that should know that stuff, and I did not know. And it was like, I listened to it on the merit of the music and the music alone. So I don't take that what you will.
The name is sort of refers to being like off in the woods somewhere.
Right.
Like it's not. It's supposed to run under the radar. I don't know any other way to put it. It's not pop music, but it's supposed to be fun. It's always supposed to be fun. And I think that I found these guys that could make these sort of percolating loop like patterns and let me do whatever I felt like doing over that. So
yeah, like kind of, it reminded me of like a, what do you get when you cross like Stooges with like Can or something like along those lines in some ways.
You couldn't That's what we're aiming for, at least. Yes.
So pour some out for
exactly.
Damo Suzuki, by the way. But yeah,
I know. Like incredible person, man.
No, but it gets
Yeah,
across. It gets across that like those are kind of the vibes that you're going for. But like I said, the music just had to stand on its own, right? Like I didn't know that was like dude from a band I like this band. No, it was just like there's a band called Minibeast. A, that's a cool band name. B, the music is good. That's it.
Yeah, I mean the whole idea of it has always been to. I mean, it's like it's like in retirement, you do everything you always wanted to do. Instead of fucking, sitting on a chair and
buying a yacht,
staring at the ceiling, I'm actually making this music that is sort of more aligned to what I wanted. I don't know, for the past 20 years. So at least I get to do it before left the earth. So
while you're
I'm really happy about.
Yeah. No.
And the guys that I play with are sort of so much on the same page. And when I was in bands, for the past 40 years or whatever, rarely was everyone on the same page. Very rarely.
That is the key, right?
Doesn't mean you can't make music. You
no.
Make music.
And in fact, sometimes the contrast can be, the secret sauce, right? Yeah.
It can.
Yeah. Chocolate in my peanut butter, that kind of situation. No, that's good. It does have a very a unified feel, right? It feels like everyone's very much like on the same page, which
that's what it is.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. Mission of Burma was always a band. Really, there were two writers, right. And then they sort of let me squeeze my way into that.
get in a little bit here or there, yeah.
Yeah. But they were really nice about that, and because they were Clint started late, but they were both really good at composition, and
right.
So I've since then, I've just been trying to find my own way with composition,
and part of it's just the doing of it, right? I mean, that's like also just you can't advance in something if you don't just do it, and
right.
That's key. I wonder though. Let's go back a little bit. Let's talk about Versus, because I think Versus is such an interesting record in that way. And mentioning that there's like different voices to what Burma did, right? And that I feel like Clint is like the Clint songs like stand out in a way that they that the Roger songs stick out in a different way, yet it all sounds like you guys. It sounds like a collaborative unit, and that's one that I feel like folks have. I mean, like what Rolling Stone put it on like one of those freaking lists that they have at some point. Right, Pitchfork retroactively went back and liked it. Yeah,
it has been a list favorite.
Yeah, because it's like that's one of the ones you throw on like, oh, but check it out, I'm kind of freaky too because I like. Like Versus by Mission of Burma. I'm intense, like okay, cool, whatever.
Strange thing to be used as a barometer of something.
No, but you know what I mean? Where someone's like, oh, I got a Gang of Four record too. Like, okay, cool.
Right.
Well, you also got Coldplay, so let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Every era has that thing that sort of, you get lucky if people treat you like a sacred cow, but like what I'm happy about is that people listen to it. And that record, that's what we wanted to sound like.
Yeah, because it kind of sounds like all the like the sort of the noise and the chaos and like which sounds great in headphones, by the way. I mean that's or like a great hi-fi system, like that was indicative as part of the band. That's all there, right? You got like some like Trem too, where it's like what's happening? What is this? First time you hear it, it's like I don't know what this is, but this is pretty cool, And sorry, there's no question involved there, but like was that a effort of were you guys trying to do that? Was the idea like, hey, we know what this band is, we know what it does?
I think we had gotten good enough where the songs were maybe a little stronger and I'm not sure, but I think hardcore, like early hardcore, had started
Sure. That's like
around that
82,
time.
right? So yeah, that's
And I would be a complete liar if I said that didn't affect us. It did. When we put up the live album, all those songs were almost literally twice as fast. I don't know. I don't know how we ended up doing it, but that's what we ended up doing. And I think it was in the air. It was just something that got us sort of harder and more dissonant and louder and meaner. And that came out on that when we finally made an album that came out on that album, I think.
Yeah, and so of course we're talking about that's the horrible truth about Burma, right? That we're talking about the collection of all the live recordings, and everything. Which I think, if I remember correctly, it was that version of Peking Spring that was the first song I ever heard from you guys. And it was the live version; it wasn't the recorded version. And then I found the recorded version again, not knowing anything about anything. And then I went back and listened to all the rest of it.
It's funny, the recorded version is kind of weak in comparison. The one on the live album sounds correct.
It's intense, yeah. And that's especially if you think about it as because songs live, right? Songs have a life, and songs change, and songs can start off being played one way, be played another way entirely, and then you play it like someone's playing it like they does in the record, like, wow, that sounds like it's in slow motion or something.
Yeah.
But what was the world like for Burma at that time? Because it's a time that I feel like people love it, but they don't understand that much about it. And part of that might be because the documentation is very specific, right? And a lot of it's written rather than what people are used to now, which here's a video. They sound like this, this show looks like that.
Yeah.
Which, it's different.
We didn't have anything to compare it to. But when we first went on tour, there was this deal you could get. You could go to various places in the US if you always returned to the hub in Atlanta. And
because Atlanta was the first huge hub airport, right? I actually saw a documentary about it, if you can believe it. Yeah, and they really wanted people to accept the idea of hub airports. That this is
right.
Fly
and
out of
so
here. Yeah.
At that time, we opted to do a tour that way on a plane because we didn't know any better.
Okay.
And it actually was affordable because they had this deal that you could get these discounts if you kept going back to that hub. And so instead of, we did get a van and we did do tours back in the day, but they were limited. We didn't,
it's a big country.
It is. And it was then even more because, there weren't clubs everywhere. There weren't a million to choose from. Yeah. You were lucky if there was one in each town, But anyway, that's how we got around first. We did go to Canada. We went down south, but it was limited. And I think by the time we stopped was about the time that it started to become, it was like an underground railroad. All of a sudden bands were playing, Black Flag,
DOA,
whole thing. And a lot of hardcore bands kind of made the pathways, for indie rock bands to do it a little bit later. So, it was primitive at the time, but you could do it. And as far as any kind of popularity, we really only had that in New England. Everywhere else we were like, who the fuck are they? But
isn't that in Asia or something? Where is that?
We accepted that because at least we got to, get out of here and do it.
Yeah. So who were your bands that you had common cause with, your bands that you kind of felt like we're coming from a similar place? Yeah, in Boston and beyond too. Who?
I think we always had some connection with REM.
Sure, yeah.
Husker Du we got pally with because we played in Minneapolis a couple nights with them. There was, tons of stuff in Boston. Everything from the Proletariat to Dangerous Birds. These bands were kind of like that we played with because we liked all of them and they were all kind of different. There was for better or worse, there was diversity. There was especially in the Boston area, there was like, art rock, there was hardcore, there was like pop, there was just lots of cool stuff. I think we started to make connections, like I said, Husker Du and REM, but most of the bands that we started to really like came after us. After we had broken up.
Right, sure. That makes sense.
I mean, we were like the primordial, creature coming up out of the tar pit, and when we died, then civilization began.
It's like the Jurassic era versus like the Cretaceous era. Yeah, no, totally. I like it. And there has to be. Yeah, there has to be some kind of because people now everything exists without causality now, right? Like people are like, again, I mentioned Tropical Fuckstorm. They'll throw up Tropical Fuckstorm and then Sonic Youth and then the birthday party and all this stuff is happening at the same time for them because it all happened long ago, and that's just not the case back then, and it was stuff moves slower, right? I mean. And you had the rise of like all the homestead bands and things along those lines, and like certain sounds.
There was tons of good stuff on that label. Now that was more Volcano Sun's era, and we did 3 records on that label,
which I do want to talk about because again, Volcano Suns I came to even later, and that was after realizing that it was like, oh, like. I should listen to some of this band that like Bob Bladen that he's always talking about. It was like this Volcanoes because I always like the name, but again, being from the West Coast, I'm like, I don't know from Volcano Suns. What's that? Yeah. So tell me how Volcano Suns came to be, because I think that's a band that like kind of never really got a great shake by history necessarily.
Like I sort of think that, but then when it's mentioned online, like. People sort of come out of the woodwork and go, "Oh yeah, cool."
Yeah.
But it started with me and 2 guys that later played in the band Big Dipper.
Yeah.
It was kind of shambolic, goofy, indie rockish for the time, which was 85, 86. Then 2 other guys came into it. That lineup made the 2 records on Homestead.
Right.
Those guys split. Bob Weston and Chuck Hahn from the band Sorry entered. So I think it got it found its voice. After those 2 records, I thought it was a comfortable fit for me. I was always ambivalent about being sort of the lead singer and the drummer at the same time. It was like that was such a like 80s indie rock thing.
Right.
It didn't quite work, but who cares? You do it anyway.
And then you hear about Phil Collins every show you play. All right, Phil Collins.
Yeah, right. But so and I think ultimately the last couple of years was Bob Weston and David Kleiler. And we made one record right toward the end called Career in Rock that came out on Touch and Go.
Steve did that one, right? Yeah.
I really liked that record. I think like it was like just before we canned it we got it.
You finally got it exactly the
did
way
it
you
right.
wanted it. Yeah. Well, and wasn't that 91 too? Like right when the gold rush happened for like indie rock?
It was. I remember people saying, if you guys had stayed together another 2 years, that you would have been on a major label. And I said, no, we wouldn't.
Right. So you
know, it's nice to say that, but no.
Well, yeah, and like that's that's just kind of how it goes sometimes. Like sometimes a band can be right band, wrong time, or wrong band, right time. Who knows?
Well, there were bands that were playing around. In fact, we played with the Flaming Lips.
Sure, back when they were a hell ass noise band. Sure.
Right. And then hung together and got huge.
Yeah.
So a lot of bands from the 80s, the Butthole Surfers were around in the 80s. Jesus Lizard may have started in the 90s. I can't remember.
When is it? I feel like it's like 90 or something was the first. I should know this. I've had like half those.
But I mean, Scratch Acid was, So
Scratch Acid definitely was, yeah.
Yeah. So there was a lot of stuff that hung in there and actually like found some success in the 90s, which I thought was awesome. I thought that was still cool.
89 is the Drum Machine one. It's that EP that was before that. So if you count it for that one, they'd be 89. But Head was 1990. So yeah,
I know. I think of them as a 90s band.
I do too, because it's kind of like they found their voice, right? And then it's like, oh man, this band. Like it's not like. It's like, oh, hey, Scratch Acid guys have a new band. It's like, oh, the Jesus Lizard. Jesus.
I mean, they were like the best live band of the 90s, I always thought.
Yeah. Highly agree. And
always satisfying.
There's something to be said for bands still trying to rip them off,
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So that's the mindset. Is like those are the people you're finding common cause. Again, that's back when Butthole Surfers were like frightening too. Like that was not a top 40 band at all. And then
no, but they were huge. They were pretty popular.
And then they made what was the Independent Worm Saloon, which is like it's like one long guitar solo.
I love that record.
That's
my favorite Butthole Surfers record.
I'm all about that, dude. Yes.
Yeah.
It's so good but I love it because it is so over the top, because it's just
I know it's absurd, rockisms.
Well, and because Paul Leary as a guitar player is just so like mind-bendingly badass that like
he's great.
Mean, it's just freaking going whole hog the whole time, and like in a good way.
John Paul Jones produced it.
Yeah, he's all right with the rock music. Yeah, he plays a Ballad of Naked Men. I think he doesn't he play a bass on that or something?
Banjo or something.
Some it's been a long time. Yeah. I don't know. I love that. I worked at a record store when that came out. I played it.
Yeah,
every day.
Love it.
Yeah. Anyway, whatever. That's Butthole Surf. But like, so anyway, but that's sort of like where your common cause was with other bands for Volcano Suns. But again, breaking up right before the gold rush happens. Right. So what happens between Volcano Suns and Kustomized? What are those years?
I worked at a record store and kind of opened my ears and mind a little bit, because I really only listened to punk and like sort of American and British rock and roll. Right. And when I got in the record store, it's like, this surf record has a cool cover. Let's put that on. And this Exotica record has this, crazy chick in a bikini or something. Suddenly you started like opening your mind to whatever a record might be. And right. I think that was a really good thing for me. And I met the guys that I played at Kustomized with there too, at the record store. So it was very organic. Kustomized was really just supposed to be like a rock band, like almost devoid of any extremeness, and just like rock. And Kurt from Bullet La Volta,
right? Yeah,
he was the drummer. He has a great band right now called Daughters of the Vine.
Oh, really? Oh, I'm interested in hearing about that.
He's the drummer. It's kind of Spaceman 3.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
Velvets, it's great. They got a new record out too. Daughters of the Vine.
I'll write that down.
Fabulous stuff.
I'm a big Clay Tarver fan. Like I think that guy's just
he's amazing,
mind-blowing guitar player. So it's anything remotely involved with that dude. That's so I went from Chavez back to Volta. Because of course, once again, did not live in the area that they were played and known for, and did not know who the hell they were until years later. But
hey,
the music holds up
as you find them,
exactly. So you're gonna get you got Kurt and you get Kustomized. You do stuff with like Matador put out those records, right? It was sort of
yes, they did.
Yeah, it was part of that world.
I like them. It was a fun thing, and it was more like guys' night out. We enjoyed each other's company. This guy Ed played guitar like Keith Richards. I'd never been in a band with a guy that did that.
Right. It's a good different vibe. Sure, absolutely.
And the bass player was this great friend that played in Busted Statues, which was an older Boston band.
That's
Bob Moses, and great bass player. Yeah, so that was the culture was sort of interwoven with hanging out at the record store, which was fun. So good times.
I dearly love Yo La Tengo, but they give me big hanging in the record store vibes as people and as a band. And I say that with peace and love in my heart, of course. But
I love them too.
Yeah, they're the best kind of music nerds, and also great at the music. But so what happens there? So that's that goes to sort of later 90s, and then you a peer group is that right?
I played in a band called a peer group, which went through lots of different members. It sort of started off like Kustomized and ended up more like Minibeast, I guess. It long songs with sort of circular grooves. That was a fun thing too, and that broke up almost literally the month that the idea of playing some Burma shows came up. So
interesting.
I've been pretty fortunate in the in the connections moving along and flowing properly. So I'm always busy doing something.
Yeah. I mean, and there's a through line through all that, right? And it's again, starting off as sort of just here's a one-off thing. Let's see if this, let's drag these songs out of the garage and kick the dust.
Man, all the bands that I've been in really started out that way. You don't know what's going to happen.
Right. Sure.
You don't know if you're going to get along next week. so yeah, the fact that I've done these different things and they had some legs and I had some fun in them is, like I say, it's all gravy,
And it was, I remember distinctly the Azarad book, the Our Band Could Be Your Life, the Burma chapter, and being something that was there's a pretty rich history here that was beyond just the 4 or 5 songs that I had heard, and the CD that I have, they still have, actually, probably right over there. That as far as getting back together. For real, right? So Swope's out, right? Hawaii, was he living in Hawaii? Is that did I come up out of nowhere?
Yes, he does.
So Bob was natural choice, as much as anything could be a natural choice for a very unnatural sound and band member.
Yeah. Well, he had just made a record with Clint. Actually, 2 records with Clint. Clint had a band called Consonant.
That's right. Yeah.
Amazing, pop records, 2 of them. They're just incredible. And Bob engineered those, so he was hanging out, and he
Chris
heard
Brokaw played in that, right? Maybe that's I'm thinking of.
He did.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, I had Brokaw on a couple of years back. So
yep.
I was I had someone on that's been in that freaking band.
He was on there. Yeah.
Sorry.
And so yeah, Bob was sort of eavesdropping on these conversations.
Yeah.
And it became apparent pretty quickly that it wasn't something Martin wanted to be involved in, and Bob knew exactly how to do it. So it wasn't like he had to be taught anything, and he was happy to do live sound along with it. So that couldn't have been better.
Which he's got a pretty good. He's getting good at that. Yeah, he's getting good at that sound thing.
He knows what he does,
and he was coming at it from the position of someone who enjoyed the music and there was a closeness to the band without being in the band, but knowing what that role did.
Oh yeah.
Right. Totally. Which is something that not necessarily everybody would have, because again, you would have to have that institutional knowledge of knowing what
it's not the most complicated thing on earth, but you've got to be interested in it. You've got to be creative with it, which he was. He would do some really funny things sometimes as private jokes between us, and of course it's coming out over the PA, but it's a joke that we only know.
It's just for the people on the stage. Yeah.
Sometimes.
Well, and that's another example of technology kind of like moving along, right? Because instead of having to exclusively rely on tape manipulation, they could use some like some digital.
He did
assists.
Ultimately, he did. He did it the way Martin did it for like the first year. Then he said, "Fuck this!
It's a pain in the ass, man. Yeah,
this is ridiculous." So he got something else that worked really even better and was easier. So.
Yeah, and then again, and that reminds this, the band being somewhat, technology forward, maybe not like wire level technology forward, but like technology forward. We're like, hey, we're not doing a Civil War reenactment here. Let's figure it out.
Although we kind of were.
It's for some people, maybe, yeah. No, but like it's those shows. I was lucky enough to see a bunch of those shows, and then when I think On Off On's great. When does like the let's make another record? When does that come into? Because I remember being like, are those new songs? Like what's happening here? Like it was very confusing at the time, because again, the internet was not the internet as we know it now, of course. But.
I think we looked at it like we could not. We were getting offers to continue to play. And we can't continue to play and just play old songs. I know that everybody does that. I know, and it's not like it's a sin or anything, but it just, to us, we needed new material to mix in, and it had to be new material that was at least great to us.
On par with what you had done before, right? Which is crazy, because it's like so long ago that it's like, well, we're different people now. Like maybe
quite.
And there's pressure because like, okay, well now there's a whole new generation of people that never got to experience a band in the first place, and they don't care about hearing those songs. They want to hear Academy. They want to hear like Revolver. They want to hear the hit.
And we understood that. We didn't want to eliminate the old ones. We just didn't want to play just them.
Right.
And I think once we started writing again, it felt like, okay, now we have an actual reason to be touring and existing and being Mission of Burma, rather than just like, beating a dead horse.
It's the Mission of Burma show live in Vegas at a season.
Yeah. If it was still going, that maybe where would have ended up.
Hey everybody, who wants some Trum too? All right, here it goes. If you guys got leisure suits, it'd be great.
Not impossible.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how much money does it pay?
Yeah, that's always what it comes down to.
So, and it's not like everyone was sitting around idle, right? Everyone's musicians. They make music. They've made records, but like coming back to a band where it's like, what, 19 years? Is that right? A 19-year hiatus between records? Like civilizations have rose and fell in like half that time.
It's weird. There's actually, like, I'm sure since we did that, there's probably hundreds of bands that have done it.
There are
Hundreds.
now, but at that time, so that was like what, 2003, 2004. Like it was pretty unprecedented. There was Wire.
Right.
It was Wire and Burma.
Actually came back and were so badass.
Oh my god! Like that.
All those Read and Burn CDs are incredible.
And when they put them together, is that record Send? And I was like, this is as good as the first three. Like
that's what I say. That is
amazing.
what I say. I think Send actually is. But yeah,
Academy Lounge song.
You know, a lot of bands.
I'm sorry, I don't do this often on this show, but Academy Lounge song is too good. I'm sorry. That's pretty. That's. Thank you, Stevie. Plenty of people chiming in the comments. I generally ignore them completely on this show. Sorry, but yeah. So, but fairly unprecedented at the time. There's basically, well, and then I guess Gang of Four did the thing where they re-recorded the stuff, which I know parts that was rights issue. The thing I liked about that is they re-recorded a couple of their better like late 80s songs were like, wow, that song is great. What is going on with that production? Why does it sound like that? And it's like, oh no, this is what it sounds like if it was like a band playing in a room instead, which is like, oh my God, fantastic, like lovely.
We often thought that if we had continued, it's the longer you hang around in the 80s, like the shittier you got.
The more gated snares come in, yeah.
Well, we had the weird sort of luck in a way to just put out a single, an EP, and an album,
and they're all great. It's like, hey, yeah,
yeah,
we
blew it by getting back together, really. Then you can be compared to your old stuff,
Well, but I mean, but that's worth saying that, like, for me, when you guys did On Off On, it was like, oh no, this is on par. This is on par with all of that. It's just that it's,
I personally like all the records we made, but I'm also realistic, I mean, if there's anything most people don't want to listen to, it's the reunion record. And do I blame them? I don't. Yeah. I don't, because they usually suck.
Yeah.
They usually suck. And we tried to make ones that didn't suck, but other people decide those things.
Well, and you can't.
All I knew.
Yeah.
All I knew is
up in it.
we had to do some new music if we were going to play. That's
because that's being a band versus doing like being an act, right? And that's, but again, like especially, I think that on off on record's pretty great. Like it's good. Like if that had just come out and was a new band, it would have been like, oh, this is like someone's favorite new band. Nicotine Bomb, great tune. It's awesome. But then again, it's so weird to think of that now. It's like, oh yeah, they got back together, right? Like it's not even a big deal. Bands do that constantly. Bands is like, I didn't know they had broken up. They got back together.
Right. I know being back together isn't as good as like that one show they're doing,
Right. Yeah. It's a different landscape now than it was 20 years ago.
Certainly. No doubt.
To be sure. And there's not as much, like there was a stigma, right? There was a stigma of like, oh, there's cashing that check, huh? All right. Which I'm not sure in you guys' cases exactly which checks you would have been cashing. But small ones. Yeah.
We cashed a couple.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not like the police or something where it's like, oh, they're.
No, I'm sure it wasn't.
Yeah, they're back together and they're jamming more than ever. Great. One of those things I wanted, the other thing I did not.
Hey, actually, it was funny that a band like that didn't put out records.
That's a good point, because clearly Sting's pretty shameless. Have you heard those solo records? It's like, all right, this is designed for a dentist's office. Like, why?
Right.
And it's achieving that goal. And you know what? Peace and love. Not for me, right? But it's for a lot of people. Obviously, he's like won a bunch of Grammys, I guess, and like whatever. A bunch of middle managers have very safe white antiseptic sex to it. I'm sure, good for them. But that is surprising that like three guys that are like players to at the deepest level that happen to attain this huge level of success. Yeah, why didn't they? That's very strange. I don't know.
You know, a lot of people just do the tours. You know, and maybe they're wiser than me. I don't know.
Well, I always said that a fun exercise, if you watch all the videos by the police on YouTube, watch them in reverse order, and you get to see a band gradually get to like each other.
Benjamin Button.
Yeah, right. Because when it gets to the first one, it's like, oh, these guys are hanging out and having a good time. But by the end of it, it's like they're barely looking at each other. They're like in different freaking studios. It's like this one's in a castle over here. This one's in the more different castle. Like it's anyway, whatever. That's by the way, Andy Summers politely declined being on this show, but the fact that it even was a conversation, it would be like, you should do it, dude. It would be great. But anyway, whatever. That's neither here nor there. I think he's the most fascinating one of those three guys, frankly, because it's like he's the one that's like more or less no drama. You know, he's just like, I'm just here to play. And those other two dudes are just like at each other. Anyway.
I saw he's on tour. He's playing near where I live, I think.
Oh, really?
Along with photography.
That's interesting. Like,
I'm pretty sure, but
okay. Well, I don't know how that'd be, but he's an interesting player. Anyway, certainly, like he single-handedly did more damage to the the effects of choruses than anyone in history besides Robert Smith, but in a good way, you know. It's a privilege, not a right, people. Anyway,
right.
So the band begins its second era, right? And it's something where you get to again play these songs that people have a attachment to that never got to see them play. Great. That's awesome. You know, that's a wonderful thing. And then you also get to kind of have a new peer group of different bands to play with and be in it in like a more different way. So when Roger's hearing starts like, and we kind of started this way when we mentioned the isolation, the cone of silence, right? When that first came in, like, was there a thought of just like, well, all right, I guess that was it. I mean, like, or was it just like, no, let's
back
find
in
a
the
way.
day, you mean?
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the reasons the band broke up, because he wanted to play music for the rest of his life, and he thought if he played too much more with us that he wouldn't be doing it.
Because it's a loud, you know, it's a show. It's a loud rock band playing. Not great for the ears.
I think he had tinnitus before us.
And it got more pronounced by playing in Burma.
Obviously.
Sure, yeah.
And so I think we had the plastic dividers. He had like
the things that look like what I'm wearing right now, which is
but he had super strong earplugs underneath those.
Right.
So his head was basically sealed off, and my drums were kind of sealed off from him. That made it so we could keep doing it, and now he still makes great music.
Absolutely. No, I mean, incredible fan of what he does. Like it's and he's compositionally just like fantastic. And I get that you might want to actually hear it, you know, but
yeah,
he
put a wild guitar record out last year.
Yeah, I heard it was freaking awesome.
It's totally cool.
Great, and he does all those live scoring and stuff like that. Oh, super cool. But like when you're playing drums, there's a feel to it, right? And then suddenly you got this, like, you're in this lucite cube that, like, it feels different, right? It has to.
It does. I don't know. I've always been kind of good at adapting.
Okay.
And that's what was required. If we wanted to play, that was part of it. So I think, for me, I think I wanted to play other instruments. So when our second round came to a close and I started doing the Minibeast stuff, I I didn't want to not play drums because of the lucite thing, but I did want to break from drumming, and I hooked up with a couple of really good drummers. The first guy I played with used to be in Six Finger Satellite.
Oh, of course.
Rick,
who's been
He's
on the
amazing.
show. I had him and Jay both on. I don't know, last year. I don't remember sometime, but like
he's
huge
amazing.
Huge fan.
And then I played with a guy named Adam Autry, who was an astonishing drummer. All these guys are better than me, you know. and it doesn't bother me because I'm doing this other thing now, and letting the drummers do that. And the guy, the two guys that I ended up with, Niels is the bass player, Keith Seidel is the drummer, and he's one of the sickest players.
He's cool.
He's just insane. And so I think the reason I'm still playing music at all is because I took a break from the way I did it.
Right, because it's going to scratch a different itch creatively when you're on a different instrument. Like it's going to hit a little different. You know, obviously there's certain aspects to playing live that are always going to be the same, but there's certain things that's going to feel 100% differently.
Yeah,
makes sense to me. I mean, and as an expressive instrument, I mean, drums can and are musical, but you're going to be limited in scope to what you can do.
Well, I haven't, half the time when I'm playing guitar or keys, I'm hitting them. So I'm still playing the drums.
Yeah,
it's like
right.
Minibeast is like a big rhythm box, you know. That's what it is, and it's sort of based on just finding new ways to hit a rhythm. And I mean, obviously, sometimes I'm singing and playing actual notes. It does happen.
Sure, but to me, that's where the canisms, if you will, or like you know, Noi was referenced earlier, like that comes in where it's like, there's just like kind of just like
the rhythm is up front.
Yeah, very rhythmically.
It's almost like it's pulling you instead of the melody.
Right. And so, depending on what style of music you're used to hearing, it can be like a real outlier. But it can be something where it's that's a nice.
It is. I think it is. I have a way of stumbling onto the outlier, you know. Like, it's my comfortable. It's my comfort zone. It's like put the spotlight over there. We're over here.
Oh, y'all doing that, or we're over here doing this. But I think it also comes from the grand tradition of when I think of like punk rock or whatever you want to call it, because that could be a loaded term. I don't think of like a bunch of bands that sound the same. I think of the opposite. I think of like Black Flag and the Minutemen playing on the same bill. I think of like you know, the Wipers, and like, you know, who sounds like the Wipers? Well, actually, a lot of bands try to sound like the Wipers these days, but like
the Wipers really, are amazing.
Who really sounds like them? No one, because it's like these idiosyncratic. Who plays guitar like Greg Sage? Like no one. You know, he was a Jimi Hendrix of punk rock. In that way, without sounding like Jimi Hendrix. And I think that one of the nice things about the socialization of the instant availability of all music at all times. So unfortunately, that means new Minibeast record comes out. Cool. It isn't going to be what came out that week. It's going to be what came out that month, that year, and like Led Zeppelin and The Clash, and like Rachmaninoff and like whatever. Like this, everything is just a lottery for people's attention these days. So there's that.
Yeah, that becomes the problem, is how do you divide yourself up to take it all in?
And people need filters for that. But I think that the upside to that is, with all of this music living in constant present tense, that you don't get the hang up that you got. Like when I was in high school, it's like, oh, well, we're the punk rockers and those are the metalheads, and like, you know, they're over there and we're over here. Everyone likes Motorhead, but other than that, like, you know, like it was, and then the idea of those being distinctions now is like completely absurd.
Yeah,
you know, people would gladly like, like who cares? Listening to Slayer and Misfits? What? Yeah, of course. Yeah, like, and then that includes like blending like things that you wouldn't even think of being together, and people like finding value in stuff in a modern context, divorced of what it was at the time, but being able to deeply appreciate it in new and inventive ways. That's the good side as far as I'm concerned.
I agree. It especially when the internet was first there, everyone was like, oh, this is going to be magical, and then it kind of settled down to a standardized thing. But still, what you just said is true. I mean, we just have to look for it. It's all there. So, I think you just start taking it for granted because it's all there.
Well, and being in filters are all the more important. And of course, we recognize this not only as musicians, but former record store guys, right? Of like, when someone comes up to you like, hey, I really like this, this record. Like, do you know any other records like it? Oh, yes, thank you. Finally, yes, I do. I knew of plenty of records like that. Or like, oh, if you like this, what were your favorite parts? Oh, I like these aspects of it. Okay, well then you should check out this. There's the Cramps and the Birthday Party, the Stooges, blah, 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 blah. And you get to go like, but everybody gets to do that now. Like, it's an online version of that.
Actually, that's great. That was the thing that I liked most about working in a record store. It was just like free form music assault. All you have to do is figure out what you love. That's the only rule.
And you hit on something very important, I think, when you mentioned kind of finding value in some of the things that maybe you'd given short shrift to before. Because I had the same experience of being like, oh, like there's some jazz records I really love, and oh, not all country is this horrible new country.
Right.
Right. Like there's a lot of really great country music as well. Like all these complete genres that I just was like, oh, that's all terrible. It's like, no, actually,
I did the same thing.
You can find something really good if you actually, either explore yourself or find someone that does like those. Like, well, tell me what you like from this. I remember the first time like somebody played me an Ornette Coleman record. I'm like, whoa. This is like crazy. Because I was thinking, and I was like, yeah, Miles Davis is good, like whatever, like, and I was like, oh man, this is like coming from like just like the punk rock of jazz. I get it,
It's funny, over the past 5 years, jazz has replaced a lot of rock for me. I gotta say, it's not like I thought. I mean, so a lot of that is rock.
For the audio only listeners, Peter is pointing to his expansive record crates immediately behind him.
Like I say, a lot of it is rock, but I think it's age partially. You want to continue to be stimulated, like I mean, I love Black Flag, but the 100th time isn't going to stimulate like the first. So
My War, we get it. Yeah.
Fit some other things in there.
Yeah. No, I mean, you can only like whatever. Everyone has that. You hear Rise Above for the first time, and you're like, yes, this is the best thing I've ever heard. I'm bouncing off the walls. And then you're like, oh yeah, it's good. It's good. Right on.
Yeah.
Like you're never gonna have that same reaction. And you shouldn't. But then you can also throw on something again years later and be like, wow, this fucking good. Like I put on Minor Threat. When's the last time I listened to Minor Threat? And I was like, I've not listened to Minor Threat in years. I'm gonna throw this on. I was like, it's like, damn, this is good.
Oh, it's incredible.
It's real good. It's incredible. And like,
I think they were the first hardcore band that I said, like, whoa, this is a step forward,
Yeah. And it's almost like if everything had been that inventive in that way, that would have been awesome. But of course, that's not how it works. And there's still like weird wild outliers and cul-de-sacs like Crucifix, great band where it's just like I just couldn't even imagine like what it would have been like who are these guys? What's their whole deal? Doc Dart come in, doing his thing. But it's weird what like kind of makes it into the winner's history of rock and roll and what doesn't, to me. And it almost seems like it's just chance more than anything else. And but there is something to be said for like a great record's a great record, right? And it's hopefully will continue to be something that people can engage with, again, absent of context years later. Going back to the Burma thing, right? There's someone that's going to discover verses and be like, what is happening in this? This is like, headphone candy that's happening, but this is clearly like, when did this come out? When did this come out? They're using samples? What's happening here? It's great to be able to like entice and befuddle at the same time an entirely new generation of people.
I like that. Entice and befuddle.
and so it occurs to me again, going back to what I said earlier, when I first heard Minibeast, I was just like, that's a cool band name. Which, first of all, by the way, props for a one-word band name. That's very hard to do these days. Had I been thinking about it, I would not have picked a full sentence for this band.
Yeah,
that was
not the Minibeast.
Horrible. Oh my god! Yeah. Everybody always wants indefinite. I used to be in a band called Replicator. People always want to do the Replicators. Like, no, that is not what it is. The band name is Replicator. And then like I was mad people would mess that up. And it's like sentence long band name. Forget it. You want someone to type a sentence line? No, they'll never do it. They'll never do it. They'll come up with their own thing, and it inevitably be the thing you hate the most. So you have to let it go. But
what is your instrument?
I play guitar and do vocals. Decent enough at bass. I my level of drumming is, Peter, I'll tell you this. I call it the drunk at a party drumming, which that drunk people at a party think that I'm a good drummer. Where in fact I am not a good drummer, but the drunk people think that I'm a good drummer because I have like my 4 beats that I can do, right? So perfunctory and largely in service of learning how to be a better songwriter and write to things that are human beings can play.
Cool.
And also just like playing drums is great. I mean, it's a great physical release. Like you get to hit things. That's awesome.
It's funny. I haven't played them hardly at all over the past few years, and I've been recently thinking of edging back. But I like listening to the guy I play with too.
He's
much.
Pretty good, man. Like he's well, and that's so again, absent of context. Like I didn't even realize that you weren't playing drums in that, but then I was like, this is good. This is cool. Like, and immediately. Record store brain. I immediately like came up with like, my krautrock comparisons and like, oh, cool, like whatever. But like in a good way, where like it wasn't quite what I didn't know what I expected, but it wasn't quite what I expected. And so talk to me about how Minibeast came to pass and Burma sort of broke up the second time.
I think it was 2008 that we stopped.
Mm-hmm.
I think I had started making these bedroom records. I put one out by myself, and I think the last maybe 5 or 6 shows we had played, they were starting to feel like the last one. Each one was starting to feel like, okay, maybe this is enough. And
got it. Yeah.
I think we went actually to Europe. We played several different festivals called All Tomorrow's Parties.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Yeah.
And the last one had some cool people on it. But then we were supposed to play one a week later. It was kind of financing the shows in between. And that got canceled. We kind of went home with our tails between our legs. And I think but at that point we were like, okay, let's stop. And everyone was good with it. Yeah, geez, that one of those last shows we played in Europe on the same night was Sun Ra's orchestra and the Flamin' Groovies and the Fall. Those things were so cool. Yeah, it was just nonstop. Like, wow, look who's on stage.
Yeah. Oh wow, it's this now. Wow. Oh, now it's this other amazing thing. Yeah, great.
But yeah, so when that stopped, I just started. I had moved with my girlfriend to Providence, maybe in 2006, and so there was a whole new city to sort of like plumb for cool musicians. That was exciting.
Sure,
I think everyone in Boston had decided if they ever wanted to play with me at that point. And I'd been in Boston for like 35 years, so it was really nice to just have a different base of operations. And I did like everyone I met was from here or close to here.
Interesting.
So it totally opened up not just what I played, but who I played with. So that I'm really, really pleased about.
So you recording things on your own? This is for the first was it Look Don't Look, right? Is the first one? Is
yeah. I recorded those in this room here. And the first one was really like a blueprint. The second one was called Free Will. That was more like a record. That felt like a record to me.
You did a Kickstarter for that one, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah.
Which is what happened to crowdfunding? I feel like it was like a huge thing for like a couple of years, and now people don't even talk about it.
It always worked out. The last time we made a deal with a label called 2020 in Maryland, and they put the record out, and I think we just sort of kept half of the records and they kept half of the records, and that was how that relationship went. And it was different. It was different from kickstarting. And ultimately it was sort of a good system. And so it was really nice that they actually got it out as a double album, because there's plenty of long songs.
Because it's long songs, yeah, exactly. As a fan of long songs,
I think a short one is probably 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that worked out. We started recording a new one about a month back. I hope we have it out by like June, maybe midsummer.
Nice.
And everyone sounds different. The first one that I liked a lot was that one, On Ice. That was the one. When I listened to it, I go like, yeah, this is the way it's supposed to be. The ones that I did by myself, those were fun little exercises.
It's like a sonic experiment almost, or something. Right?
Kind of, yeah. But the second one I do think sounded like an actual album. So yeah, it's been a fun experience. When you're fucking old, like it could stop anytime. You could, if I broke my leg, if I broke my foot, I think about stuff like that, because like it's not like when you're 25 and you go, oh, if this band breaks up, I'll just start
whatever,
start another band. At 75, I don't think so. I am not 75, but if it's not that far off. Let's just say it. It's not that far off.
I mean,
so it's a different vibe. It's almost like you're walking the plank, and that like you got to make every second count.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Well, and there is a vitality to it, and it's interesting how like we're experiencing things now that has never happened in the past, which is to say that punk rockers at retirement age, right? I mean, like,
I know,
not a genre that really would lend itself well to a certain degree.
It's an intense concept, man. I mean, like, Tom Verlaine died.
I know.
There's
Wayne Kramer.
Wayne Kramer. Damo Suzuki. There's like
Wayne Kramer was hitting on my friend's wife at their show at the MC50. I was like, wow, good for him. He's like 75. He's like 73.
That's funny.
And I was like, is he hitting? He's hitting on her, isn't he? Oh wow, that's hilarious. Great band, by the way. Brendan Canty on drums, Bill Gould
yeah.
on bass. Oh god,
Yep.
that was so great. And again, moved with a vitality that you're hard pressed to find some 25-year-olds to have.
Yep.
You know, but anyway,
Yeah, which is awesome. But you know, I think we all try to be realistic, and you go like, well, that could end tomorrow.
right? You don't want someone to
hope
break
it
their
doesn't,
hip, sure, yeah.
you know. But I just think it's good when you do anything to be realistic about it.
Realistic, sure. I mean, yeah, you're not going to be. Look, even Pete Townsend doesn't do the Pete Townsend stuff anymore. You know.
Yeah.
I hope I die before I get old. By the way.
Yeah. It's all circular, you know. There's no escaping it.
But there also is again, it doesn't have to be. You can do more than just playing the hits. You know what I mean? And like, look, I'm pretty sure there's some version of the Misfits ran around playing shows, and I'm sure people are having a good time at them. Not for me. You know, I will. Hell yeah! You think I'm gonna put on some Misfits record? Sure, sounds great. But like, whatever that is, I'm happy people are getting something out of it. It's not for me.
Yeah.
Whereas, if those dudes got together and like, oh, we made this new band and it sounds like completely different or whatever, that would be interesting to me. I'm like, great. Well, what's this gonna be like? You know, I don't know. Like, I don't want to even pick on those guys, but like, just like, there's bands that change is part of the goal and exploration, and there's ones that aren't, you know, and that's fine, but I always feel like with all your bands, it's sort of like, all right, cool, let's try this now, let's rip into this, let's see what happens when we do this. You know, that sort of like mad scientist vibe.
Right, yeah, that's a good description. Yeah.
And it's cool because like, you just don't, for whatever reason, well, I know the reason why, it's ageism. You just don't see it in a lot of music, that unless something's already super well known and famous, like, it's not okay to do that for some reason. Like, first, and it's like, well, first of all, who gave you the permission to do anything? Like, you know, instead of waiting for like, where's it, like you get like a pass administered to you? Like, are you kidding? Like, no, just there's no rules for this. Like, get out of here.
It is a funny thing though. I don't think, again, if you're gonna bother to do it at all, just deal with the fact that people notice that you're old. That's the way. Whatever. You can't do anything about it, you know.
Yeah, man.
So,
I mean,
yeah, if I worried about that, I wouldn't do it.
Sure. And some people might get hung up on optics for it or whatnot, but it's just like, well, what are you in this for? Are you in this to like look cool? Because good luck. You're not going to look cool your entire life, man.
Well, I want to be honest here. When I see a punk band and the average age is 65 or 70, yeah, it doesn't sit quite right. You know, and I'm in the same boat. So you know, I don't want to complain or give someone a hard time for existing, you know. But I've seen a few punk rock shows where people were around my age, and sometimes it didn't work to me. But that's not the point. It worked to them. So
it works to them, and good for them. You know, it's like, keeps them out of trouble. No, but
yeah, exactly.
You know, and there are people that will they just want to hear those songs. They just want to hear those songs. That's it. Or maybe they just want to, like, you know, like, again, it doesn't need to be like in service of anything. They're just playing music.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. This is true.
But there is also the channeling the intensity in a different way. Kind of, you know, the perfect example for me, even though I'm not a huge fan of the last few Bad Seeds records, but I think Nick Cave has done a great job with this. Of like,
I love Nick Cave, and you know, the 2 or 3 Grinder Man records he put
so
out.
Good. Oh,
did you go see him?
Yes, that was one of the coolest birthday presents I ever got. Was my girlfriend at the time bought me tickets to see Grinder Man. I was like,
yeah, incredible.
No, and like, it was like, oh, it's like, I don't think he's done anything this intense since the birthday party. You know, it was crazy. Like,
he didn't.
And the fact that, like, yeah, like, I got a lot of time for whatever Nick Cave's up to. Even if I'm not into like whatever the thing is now, it's like, look, there's this dude does like a cat. I can listen to those other records. It's fine.
Yeah,
I'm glad he's out there doing
great aesthetic, and he's a great writer and singer. So what's not to like? You know?
And even when he's making this sad laptop music, I'm like, okay, it's not really my deal, but like, cool, awesome. You know, and then some of those songs really pop live. Okay, well, great. Then I'm excited to see those live. I'm probably gonna go back to Let Love In or Murder Ballads when I'm listening to them on a record. But you know, it's fine. Like,
yeah,
for me, that's kind of like the Iggy Pop metric, right? Like for as many, look, that's the dude. Butt Town was an Iggy Pop. Not great.
You know, for one of the most incredible musical figures of my life, Iggy's put out some pretty crappy records.
Bad. So many, like, just like, like not great records. But as a performer, I saw him on, I don't remember. It was in the 90s. It was like one of those 90s records. Wasn't a great record, but from moment one, him and his Hair Farmer band were just destroying the place, destroying it. I was like, how is it this good? That, like, and like,
no, I agree. Whenever I've seen him live, it was there.
Yeah,
like it's totally there.
And you know what? It doesn't matter. He can put out some like like a light jazz record. Okay, fine. You know, like, but like, it's Iggy, man. And every once in a while, same deal. That post-pop depression record, great.
Was it
really good? It's really good. Like better than I think people gave her credit for.
Well, and I'm glad he still makes ones that count.
Yeah, and like, you know, the rest of me is kind of like a virtualize a little bit here.
Yeah.
Avert your ears.
Yeah, avert your ears.
There you go. That's a song title.
Yeah.
No, but it's interesting, like what's considered acceptable in music that we're just like, well, what everything is acceptable. I mean, like who cares? Like Billy Gibbons looks like a skeleton crossed with a wizard, and he's still shredding guitar. Like I don't know what he's up to now, but like doesn't matter. He's Billy Gibbons. He's doing the Billy Gibbons thing. You know, like good for him. And you know, people want to see it. Great. I saw ZZ Top for free 10 years ago. Somebody like was like coming back from a tour. Was like, do you want to see ZZ Top for free with me this afternoon? Yes, I do. And I saw them, and they were fantastic.
Wow.
And I felt like it was exactly the same show as like 1979 or something, right? And it probably was, for all I know. And other than the blues jam, I was into all of it. But I think it's interesting for someone of your stature, as like, again, Mission of Burma being like one of these bands that it's on the Rolling Stone best records ever, whatever the list was. I don't even know. Like all of these lists, it's like a list band, right? For the record nerds to be like, show like, well, check it out. I'm more into Mission of Burma than whatever it is you're into. Okay, fine. You know, that
I've heard the name at least.
right. I know what that is. That's that reaction, right? That like you're not going to be able to get all those people to even like give something new a chance. But that doesn't matter because it's still there for the people that's there for, right?
True, of course.
So how do you find reactions to Minibeast being? Again, because you mentioned, and I agree with you, that like there's a vitality that's stronger than ever amongst quote unquote weird music now. But it seems like the audience for it is just more balkanized than ever. This is my opinion, but I stand by it.
It is God, I don't know how to put it. I think as long as we're careful about, you know, the shows we play, we generally have a great time.
Yeah.
I you know, it's not a career.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not. I don't look. I'm not trying to like get up in the charts or something. It's not going to happen. You know. So I for what I want from it, yeah, it's pretty fucking fun. You know.
Well, yeah, I mean, which is you can always be a success that way, right? You know, like you're always successful
in a way, in a moderate.
In a moderate, somewhat sustainable way.
I know I'm hedging my bets here. I've been playing with these guys for 5 years, and we just sort of trundle along. And I whenever we can, we go on tour.
Yeah.
It's sort of like a scaled down version of what I've always done in rock bands anyway. But like I said, it's a complete indulgence. It's us doing this thing exactly the way we want to. So I can't worry about, like I said, getting radio play or charts or lists or anything.
Is, yeah.
But Burma's the list band. We're not the list band.
Well, it can be a challenge sometimes when you have something that's that successful and that has touched so many people that like they only want to know from that. They don't care about the other things. And it's not even out of malice, right? It's just that they're like, oh no, it's just it's not where they're at.
Yeah, I occasionally it might seem a little clueless that they can only like this one part of you, but then you go, they're not clueless. That's what they know. It's not like a sin to not be aware of my back catalog. It's like whatever someone knows, that's great.
Yeah, and that's
great that they know it.
Look, it's a minor miracle anyone pays any attention to anything at all. Jesus Christ. like, am I wrong? So the fact that they're, that's not the miracle I wanted. Okay, well, it's a miracle you got.
Right.
But it doesn't mean you can't. I mean, like the record you put on the fall, right? The On Ice album. Like there's saxophones and stuff. There's all kinds of like cool stuff going on in there, and I know a guy that is like he doesn't like brass instruments. If there's a brass instrument, he's out. He's like, you'll never see me again. I'm like, oh, well, really? Okay, jeez. Like, and it's like so arbitrary. It's like you're so open-minded in so many ways. Like, why is that the thing that like you're not into?
It's a funny thing. Sometimes I wonder if as this old age band that I had basically mimicked whatever I did 30 years ago, would that be disliked or would it be liked? I don't know. I'm not
like you need to like customize part 2 or something.
Right.
Yeah,
and
sure.
And I know a lot of people do that sort of thing. They sure. when they pick up again, they pick up where they were a long time ago. It's certainly not a sin. It's something that a lot of musicians feel comfortable doing. It just wasn't the thing that I wanted to do. But I've thought it before, like like making a Volcano Suns with different people now.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, it wouldn't make any sense. But a lot of people would say, why don't you do that?
Right. Everyone's got a lot of advice, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I get the same thing. I'm like, man, I didn't ask you for your advice. I don't need that.
Right.
And it's like, you understand it's coming from a place that hopefully is out of like, affection or love or whatever. But yeah, if you're making art, like generally speaking, you know what I really want? Some advice. I want some advice on what kind of art I should make. No, who has ever said that? Like, no. If you're saying that, you don't know what you're doing. And like, you're maybe not making art in the first place. Like, it's going to be exactly what it's going to be. If you're making these crazy, noisy psych records that are like super rhythmically based and got saxophones bleeding over there and bleeding over here, then that's what it is, man. Like,
right.
Get down with it. Thank you.
I am.
But it is funny, the unsolicited advice, man. If there's anything like social media has done, is like everybody's just ready to give advice at a moment's notice. Like, I don't need that. But thank you. I appreciate that you want to give it to me, but I don't need that.
Right.
So yeah, so that's so On Ice, good record. Like again, I think that was a solid record. Tell me about the horror and suspense themes.
I buy a lot of soundtracks.
Yeah.
A lot, and especially like horror ones. My girlfriend and I watch a ton of horror movies.
Nice.
It's like part of the landscape of my life.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
always liked them. And so yeah, I plan to do a volume 2 at some point. But I started making just creepy little soundscape things. Got 10 or 11, and I said,
that's a thing.
Download. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was that.
And well, I think it was cool because like soundtrack stuff is like its own vibe and its own thing. Like, and there's people like that are so good at it, and it's like John Carpenter. He's so good at it, and it's not even like his quote unquote main thing, but it's like, oh man, like it's like one of the
he's
one of the greats, right?
He's done some amazing music for his own movies. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's and which is literally like, I don't want to have to pay someone to do this, so I'm just going to do it. Which
probably came from that initially. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's like, oh no, I actually kind of dig this. Like I like messing around with these synths, and
no, I got all his.
Definitely. Yeah. So, but it is like there is something kind of like cool about, like, that's the framework, right? That's the box that you're building something in, that you're trying to evoke a vibe. You're trying to get that mood.
Well, also, I thought like rock music tends not to be evocative; it's provocative. It's like sort of shoves itself in your face, then there's all these kinds of music that I basically got exposed to because of the record store. Soundtracks, jazz, blues and folk sometimes can be like evocative rather than provocative, that stuff sort of like sits back and creates a mood. And I really never did that in my whole musical life until the past few years. So I'm sort of wallowing in that.
Sure. Well, it's it's exciting. Why wouldn't you?
Can be.
Like
just because it's something else.
Yeah, it's something that it isn't road worn, so to speak. Like it's like a new exercise in a different muscle group. There we go. How about that?
Exactly.
No, that's
you get some
great.
Good phrases that I'd love to steal, but I won't.
Do so with my blessing. You would not believe my my potential song title list. I'll never get to all these. If I live to be 1,000 years, I'll never get to all of them. There's no way. Take them with my blessing, please.
All right.
And I like whatever. I'm a cultural magpie myself, so sometimes people will say something weird. I'd be like, what the hell? And then what I've noticed now, my dad is the king of this because he lost a lot of hearing working on a jackhammer back in the day.
Wow.
and settled for way too little money. But when he mishears things, he mishears them as funnier than they are.
Oh, I'm a big fan of mishearing.
So unfortunately, because I play music myself, I've lost some hearing. I'm like, God damn it, it's happening to me. And I'm like, did you just say, like, and I'll just and be like, what? No, like, who has ever said that in the world? I'm like, oh, okay, cool. But
no, I think that stuff is a riot. My girlfriend is always like, yeah, that's really funny. Like, please, could you actually hear me?
Yeah, for sure. And when I was a younger man, I mean, I would say I definitely got more impatient with my father for be like, oh no, that's not what I said. Like, I said this. Whereas like now I'm like, oh my God, I ran that down. That's good. I'm writing that down. That's got me use that one. What was I going with that? Oh yeah, but that's just, you find inspiration wherever you can, right? Why not?
Absolutely.
You're gonna, stuff will be misheard.
Yes.
There's a bathroom on the right. Absolutely. Excuse me while I kiss this guy.
Right.
I think that's a book. I think there might be a book of those. Anyway.
Yeah, there should be.
It's been so great, man. Thanks so much for doing this with me. Really appreciate all your time and everything. What's going on with Minibeast? You got the show with McCluskey coming up at the time of this recording.
We're actually doing a little tour. You're on the West Coast, right?
I am in Milwaukee, but I'm from the West Coast. I am, yes, just to confuse things further. On the internet,
we're hoping to do some touring later in the year.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, let a brother know. I would love to see it. And I will, I don't make super huge habit of it, but like I'm gonna go down to Chicago on Saturday because it's like, okay, it's Jay Robbins and Deep Tunnel Project and Alan Epley of Shiner. So like, okay, that's a 3-fer. I'm gonna go down for that. I will do it. Milwaukee is not a suburb of Chicago. It's an hour and 45 minutes away.
I know Milwaukee.
I know you know this. A lot of the agents at Route Tours don't seem to understand this. But anyway, whatever. That's a separate.
Providence is like that. We kind of get left off the the map.
Do you know the band Cal Marx?
Yes, they're great.
Yeah, they're so good.
They're awesome.
Carl, they moved down there. They live in Providence now. So
do they?
Yeah,
we played with them last year. They were really good.
I love that band. That last record of theirs is they got on some new stuff with that one. They're killer band. Great folks.
Yep.
He was on this show. It was getting increasingly dark the entire time. And I was like, "You don't have a light in this house? Like, what's happening?" But whatever.
I think I can't stop moving around.
It's fine. It's fine. The video thing is an added element for me anyway. Anyway, Peter, that's neither here nor there. I was thanking you for coming on the show. Appreciate you spending so much time with me. Last question I ever ask, and this is a canned question, so you can choose to interpret it however you like. But why do you do what you do?
Because I have to. That's it.
Easy enough. Peter Prescott, thank you so much, man. Appreciate you. Until next time. There he goes. Peter Prescott. What a cool guy. Hope you guys enjoyed that. You can go find Minibeast on minibeast.bandcamp.com, and you can get all their stuff. They have the horror and suspense themes record, all that stuff's on there. I'm actually going to play something from the most recent record. I got to be careful because I want to play something that actually it's not super long. So let me do that. But yeah, this is some Minibeast. This is Stimulants.
Wide and awake in a time and a place. A taste of the wind that's hitting your face. You feel all the vibrations of all the earthquakes. As the ticker starts whispering, cut to the chase, cut to the chase, cut to the chase.
All right. Got some Academy fight song. A little band called Mission of Burma. Oh, a little Mission of Burma coming at you. And of course, before that, we had Minibeast. Minibeast! Out of Providence, Rhode Island. That's off of the On Ice album. The song is Stimulants. You can get that as well. Both of those feature my guest tonight, Peter Prescott. I'd like to thank him for being on the show. What a cool guy. Of course, the name of the show is Conan Neutron's Protonic Reversal. Thank you so very much for listening to it. This show airs usually Thursdays, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, 6 Mountain, 5 Pacific. Streaming live on YouTube and Twitch. Podcasted later for free. Always no ads, no sponsors, no kidding. However, if you like the show and you want to get episodes sooner, you can do so by joining the Patreon. Patreon.com/Protonic Reversal. $1 a month. That gets you advance access to all the episodes if you miss them live. And helps pay the bills, frankly. So thank you for that. Thank you for everyone for liking the show, subscribing to your various forms of listening and watching, sharing around the internet, leaving a review. All that helps people discover the show, and it beats back the almighty algorithmic overlords. It's just a darn nice thing to do. I appreciate it. 2 more episodes this week. Stephen Hodson of USA Nails and Blacklisters, Kong. That's Thursday, and apparently it's Steve's week. Peter Prescott didn't get the matches. Steve Sherr of Mudhoney on Saturday coming up. So, of course, keep it tuned. Keep it tuned? Sure. Keep it on Protonic Reversal for all those episodes and many more.
Turn sound into electricity.
And thank you so much for listening, as always. I deeply appreciated. Stay safe out there.
Hear me now? Out on Route 128, you're dark and lonely. You got my radio on. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Welcome to my top 10. I'd like to thank our sponsor. But we haven't got a sponsor. Not if you were the last man on Earth. She was prepared to prove it. This one goes out to a special girl. But there is no special girl. It's the end of radio. The last announcer plays the last record. The last what? Leaves the transmitter. Circles the globe in search of a listener. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Is it really broadcasting if there's no one there to receive? It's the end of radio. As we come to the close of our broadcast day. Got my radio on. Can you hear me now? This is a test! If this had been a real emergency,